and then it matches up, that angle matches up with the Ventail. You can see, and it'll pivot there, and then those two parts are fitting together pretty good, and then there's this actual helmet itself. I have to realize, okay, where is it going? That's why this is just a temporary crease, because we might eventually just change that. But it's going to be going basically like that. What it is it's going to have to be far enough back that it clears the comb. Clears the high part of the comb. So to make sure it's going to clear that comb. Okay, so I'll clear this up, and I'm going to start slowly putting all the pieces together and making sure they function. Then I'll mark it, and we'll start getting the pivot point on it. Again, this is all rough before I do a final cleanup, because I don't want to make a commitment, start cleaning something up when I'm going to change it. So we're still in the changing, making sure. All right, so now we're at a point where everything seems to be lining up right, and I'm going to keep these two bolts here to temporarily hold it together while I permanently rivet these two pieces together, because from here on in it's going to be easier to work on if it's one piece. Make sure it fits everything. So I'm basically using a small nail and cutting it off short, because this will be a flush, almost like a hidden rivet eventually. Do the two end ones. The ones that will be really difficult will be the ones in the center there, and we'll use my special anvil for that, because just a regular anvil is going to be really tough. Because what we're doing is we're basically making working the heads on the inside and cutting it off short. Now replace these two. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm working this pattern out, and yeah, like I said, it's like whatever I change here, I have to change on the template so that next time I'll get it right. But I never really know until everything's together what all I need to change. Yeah, as far as the nails are concerned, I use just bright, common nails. You know, you don't want to get masonry nails or anything, although there's times for that too. Yeah, now getting in here is going to be pretty darn tough. Because, yeah, I'll just show you why. It's like, this needs to almost go under, so I can cut this off and hammer it. So we'll go on to my specialty anvil, that really long one. I'm going to do a real close-up for you guys to see how you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, so I got the nail sticking up, and keep working on that later. I'll just make it flatter and flatter. But I'll just show you the same with this one here. where I stick a nail inside, up through there, and right on the corner here. It's really, really tough to get in here. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to keep hammering them until they get completely snug and flush as possible. So yeah, as you can see, it's all done with the nails. 2 nails here, just nailed together. At this stage, we're trying to make everything line up and function properly. One of the more difficult parts is to make sure that everything is on the same pivot point on this helmet. So what we do is we're sort of at a stage where we assume that we've made this half the same amount of stretching as this half here. So, and then what I do is I make sure that, well, these 2 pieces here, the Ventail and the visor, have to function properly, really well together, and have to be, centered and pivot just like perfect. So, and as usual, nothing's perfect. It's going to take quite a while. This is a stage where it really takes a while to figure out how to get all these 4 pieces to function properly. So here, I'm making sure that, I've basically measured from this hole here to the very, very tip. Ends up being just a little over 9 inches. So then I did the same here when I marked the hole. It's just a little over 9 inches. So yeah, I marked the holes on that. And then same with the Ventail. And these have to close really, really well together. It has to be dead straight. Because the eye slots are just above the Ventail. So then once I've got that figured out, then I have to do the same to the bever and attach it to the helmet. So this is the very time-consuming part. This is not easy. Well, there's nothing easy about making armor, but this is the most difficult part. So I'm just trying to explain the process of doing this. So I have to line up this crease on the Ventail with the crease on the bever too. So again, I sort of adjust it. I usually just do it on one side first. I'll mark the hole. And then, if you guys notice, it's just like a 1/8 inch hole. I'm just with these little nuts and bolts, because I don't want to make a commitment to making any large holes at this point. So then I hold this and I'll just make sure it's lined up properly, and then I'll mark this side here, which I did, and I drilled it out. So then the visor and the Ventail are working good together. And then I also make sure the Ventail and the bever is working good together. This is one part where it's like if things are off, a little bit skewed, it's almost like I do this last, because I can adjust and make this line match the bever. So, because there's always like a little bit of fudging to do here and there, but so far it seems to be functioning fine. And then the hardest part is to make sure that all of these function on the closed helmet, the actual top itself. So what I do with that is I make sure that the visor works, because I know that everything's going to work for the bever and the Ventail on the side. So it's all about matching the visor up to the helmet top. And again, I want to make sure that everything's dead straight. So I just do a temporary mark, again with a felt pen, on this side. Once I'm looking down here and making sure that everything's straight, and then I'll make a mark. And I basically always work from one side, and then I'll drill a small hole out, like this. And then, as you can see, I can go one way or the other. But what it is I want to make sure that it's pivoting the same amount. And I'll basically pick the peak point of how high this is going to be to clear. And I'll make a mark there, which I did. And everything seems to be straight. And then I'll drill it out, which I did. Bolt it together temporarily with the small bolts. And make sure that everything's straight. I usually look a lot to make sure that this back lines up perfectly. Not only does it clear the high end here, it comes all the way down and it still maintains being as straight as possible. You know, and then I might have to hammer this out a little bit more to conform it, but at least I know sort of everything's working. And that's why I don't do my final cleanup yet either. I've done a lot of the planishing I need to do. So now I'm assuming, basically, I'll double check with measurements. But I'm assuming that all these pieces are going to work, you know, harmoniously together to make sure that they all function, open and close. So then I'll do a test by unbolting it and then bolting them all together. I mean, so far so good, but also I'm explaining after the fact. It took me like an hour to make sure that these pivot points were working properly. So this is a very time-consuming part. I'll show you another way of me calculating this out was, you know, again, I'm always double checking my measurements. So I would measure from the tip of the center here to the hole. It ends up being just a little over 7 inches on this side. And then same with this one here. It's just basically just a little over 7 inches. 7 inches and 1/8. So I know that's working good. So I'll have to, like, everything seems to be checking out. And if you kind of notice, what I ended up doing was I hammered out a bit of the side helmet only after I marked the hole, so that way I know that's the pivot point. But I hammered it out just a little bit more so it sticks out a little bit further to make sure that everything clears properly. And then I have to planish it out again. So let's try everything together. And this is the order it goes. It's like the Ventail is over top of the visor and the bevel. So all 3 of these pieces work together. And attach to the helmet top itself. This is something you just can't rush. It takes a long time to figure this out. But once you've got this figured out, it's basically, you can take things apart and really clean them up nice. And finish up the helmet. showing how difficult it really is, because it really is difficult. Okay. Having a hard time running it through this second, through the better part. There. Obviously, I'm struggling with this to get this to work properly. That showing you the reality is really tough. Ready to give up. There, finally. Just to show you it's not easy. Okay, but I got it to work. There. So you can see everything seems to be lining up good. Visor and Ventail up. These match here. Better. The neck looks good. So, yeah, we're ready to take this thing apart, clean it up, and put it back the other day. So now the next stage is making, I'm going to use my pattern here and I'll mark out the holes for the breathes and the lifting peg, and then also the gorget plates. So I've got the front and back gorget plates, and including a plume holder. So let's go out to the outside shop and cut out these pieces, and we'll start adding them on to the clothes helmet. I've just finished drilling out the holes to a larger size, and I'm going to try putting these parts together for the first time. Okay, it's kind of a temporary build, as usual, but yeah, everything seems to be lining up.